Welcome once again to another edition of the Sports Wrap with Michael Kravetz. I am your host, and on today's show, a lot of things to get into, and we're going to start it off with the situation that has dominated ESPN, a lot of local sports talk shows, and that is the Mike Rice story at Rutgers. It was announced, a video came out earlier last week showing Mike Rice abusing a lot of his players in practice, throwing the basketball at their head, at their legs, at their groin, shouting at them, getting real up close in their face, putting his hands on the players, using homophobic slurs against them. It was for me to see, I was pretty much disgusted with it. That's something I don't believe in college basketball, but after this video was shown, the piece was done by Outside the Lines. Don Van Natta Jr. reported the story, and it was just details of hours of physical and mental abuse that Rice was inflicting upon these players, and it was just unacceptable. 3 players actually transferred from Rutgers, including big man Gilvadis Baruta to Rhode Island, and he told ESPN that Rice would call him extremely mean names, throw his hat off at him, and that was one of the reasons why he transferred. And Mike Rice was actually suspended 3 games back in December and fined $50,000 when the school was aware of his actions. Rice apologized and said that he would make amends. And, I mean, this stuff still happens. So, Rice gets fired this past Wednesday following the leaked footage, and then the AD who fired him, Tim Pernetti, decided to resign this past weekend. And the president is still there, in Robert L. Barchi, and he's taking a lot of the fire. The Rutgers interim senior and VP and general counsel, John B. Wolf, also resigned. So it's pretty much left to Barchi. And a lot of the reporters repeatedly facing the press conference, facing Pernetti leaving and Rice being fired, facing a lot of questions just about, if you knew about some of the stuff that was happening back in December when Rice was suspended, why wouldn't you look more into it? And he said he had the video, but did not decide to watch it until a couple of days after it was leaked. And people were saying, well, if you had this video, why didn't you end up watching it? And he just said he had other issues to solve, other problems. And he was joking around saying, I'm so new to Rutgers, he's only been on the job for 6 months, that he's not able sometimes to remember his way to the university. So he was trying to deflect a lot of this by using humor, and it's just unacceptable. If you're the president, you need to know about this stuff. And I just think that he put his head under the rug, didn't bother looking into this, because if your coach is suspended for 3 games, and your AD is the one who enforced the suspension and being fined $50,000, you should really see that as a red flag and say, okay, something is wrong here. And Mike Rice, who's a former assistant at Pitt, former coach of Robert Morris, multiple Robert Morris players defended him, saying that none of this stuff ever happened at Robert Morris, and there were even some Rutgers players who were defending him. Eric Murdoch, who played under Rice, and who was a former assistant that was fired by Rutgers and was kind of one of the people to further along this investigation, and he wanted to really bring this about to the world. He wants to get back at Rutgers, and he said, this isn't how a coach should be teaching his players. You shouldn't be throwing the basketballs at them. You shouldn't be yelling homophobic slurs at them. You simply can't do that. And I agree with Murdoch, because seeing the video, a coach should not be doing that to his players. Now, don't get me wrong, a coach is there to help these guys become mature young adults and also to be good basketball players. And I know sometimes players, you got to get up in their face and you got to get them to concentrate, but you don't do that by using derogatory terms, and you don't do it by abusing them, throwing the basketball at them. That's not how effective teaching works. Now, obviously, with Bob Knight and the Indiana championship teams, that was a different story. Now, maybe if Rutgers won, this would be kind of the same situation. But the fact that Rutgers hasn't had much success with Rice at the helm, they've never had a winning season. Or, my mistake, they've never made the postseason under Rice in the 3 years. So, maybe that's the reason why. But it's just unacceptable for the president not to know about this, and Rice should have been out a long, long time ago. And it's going to be a while. He might not get another head coaching job ever offered to him in the NCAA. So this is something that the Rutgers University is going to have over their heads for at least a couple years to come. And in other news in college basketball, Trey Burke was announced the AP Player of the Year and also the Wooden Award winner. First player ever for Michigan to win the Wooden Award, and I think it was deservedly so that he won both of these awards. Coming into the NCAA tournament, it was an open competition. It was Trey Burke, Victor Oladipo, Otto Porter Jr., Doug McDermott, possibly Mason Plumlee, possibly Cody Zeller, but in the end, Trey Burke, with 31 of the 65 votes from the AP panel, won that award. He averaged 19.2 points, 6.7 assists, 3.1 rebounds, and the majority of the time he was playing with freshmen. Burke's only a sophomore. I think it's a sure sign that he's gonna forego his junior year and senior year and enter the NBA draft, because I think he's a surefire first-round pick, and I think he can help NBA teams. And Jim Larrañaga won the Coach of the Year, and he led Miami to both the ACC regular season title and the ACC tournament title, 29-7. A lot of people picked them to make the Final Four, possibly win a championship. Disappointing. They lose in the Sweet 16 to Marquette. Miami was the number 2 seed. They were out at one point the number 2 team in the nation, highest ranking ever for the university. And it shouldn't come as any surprise, because Jim Larrañaga is a great coach. This team had a lot of seniors, a lot of fifth-year seniors. Shane Larkin, a possible player of the year, sophomore at the helm. They had a very deep team, and definitely one of the best years ever for that program in basketball. Jim Cruz of St. Louis, who did a remarkable job filling in for the head coaching job there once Rick Majerus passed away. He received 19 votes, came in second, and then Mark Few, who had his best season yet at Gonzaga, came in third with 11 votes. But now I want to talk a little bit about the Final Four. It just happened last night, both games, and both were very, very tightly contested games. The first one starting off with Wichita State and Louisville. The Shockers coming into this game were not going to be afraid. They took down number 1 seed Gonzaga. They took down Ohio State, and they did not come out afraid. They started to go up early 8-0 the first 5 minutes of the game. Then Louisville comes back with a 9-0 run, and that would be the story of the game. Pretty much both teams having spurts of different runs. The Shockers, they started off with a couple turnovers. For both teams, lots of missed threes, a lot of long perimeter shots that were not falling down. Both teams, it seemed, were afraid to go inside, I guess because of the length of Carl Hall for the Shockers and then Gorgie Jang for the Cardinals. And the surprising thing was that Peyton Siva was pretty much invisible in the first half. And then for Wichita State, Malcolm Armstead, their point guard, was 0 for 6. So, their two starting point guards and really good players were pretty much invisible in the first half. Both teams shot poorly. Louisville was 8 for 20. Or my mistake, Louisville and Wichita State both shot under 35%. And Wichita State had the 17 to 16 rebounding edge after the first half. And they were up 26 to 25. And the big thing that I took note of this was that Wichita State 23-1 when leading at halftime. A lot of the things coming into the game, with the Shockers being able to handle the Louisville pressure at halftime, only 4 turnovers for Wichita State and 7 actually for Louisville. So that was a big difference in this game. And in the second half, Wichita State was still putting their foot on the pedal. Russ Smith, he picked up his third foul at the 17:37 mark. Patino decided to leave him in. The Shockers had their biggest lead, 47 to 35, close to midway through the second half. They were 10 of 15 from the free throw line with about 10 minutes to go. They were getting to the line early, and all of a sudden the Louisville bench was the spark that they needed. Tim Henderson, who's a walk-on, who, barely scored at all in the regular season, comes in and hits 2 huge back-to-back three-pointers, cuts the lead to 6, 47-41, and then you think, okay, Louisville's going to make another run and take the lead, but then Takil Cotton, who had that big shot against Ohio State and Gonzaga, hits a 3 to put Wichita State back up by 6. Later on, 53 to 47. But the big thing, though, was the turnovers. Louisville pressures teams, and eventually it's going to get to them because Wichita State, in the final 13 minutes, 7 turnovers, and was outscored 37 to 21. Luke Hancock stepped up, hitting huge threes. Hit a huge 3 with under 2 minutes to go to put Louisville up 65 to 60. Then they hit their free throws down the line and were able to hold on for the win, 72 to 68. Luke Hancock, 20 points, 14 of them came in the second half. Wichita State actually had a chance. They had the rebound after a Louisville missed free throw. Ron Baker had the ball, but Luke Hancock rushed in to get the tie ball. Possession arrow favored Louisville. They went on to hit the free throws, and that was pretty much it. And the difference was the bench. Louisville's bench outscored Wichita State 34 to 9. Like I said, Hancock had 20, Montrezl Harrell had 8, and then Tim Henderson had 6. And really, the big thing was that for this Wichita State team to have success, for them to possibly upset Louisville, was that they needed stellar play from their whole starting lineup, and they didn't get that out of Malcolm Armstead. His worst game of the tournament by far, only shooting 1 of 10, 2 points. Cleanthony Early was the one that kept Wichita State, kept their lead, and played so well. He had a double-double, 24 points, 10 rebounds. And, that was the difference. Wichita State needed all their guys to contribute, and they didn't get that. Louisville, the number 1 overall seed for a reason. Russ Smith took some questionable shots early in the game, but he ends up stepping up and knocking down big free throws. He finished leading all scorers on Louisville with 21 points. So Louisville then will face the winner of the Michigan-Syracuse game, which took place later that night. And in this game, Michigan looked strong early. Mitch McGary looked like he was out muscling most of the Syracuse players down in the post. Trey Burke, recently the player of the year, did not start off well. Only shot 1 of 5 in the first half, 3 points. But McGary, he was the difference maker in this game. First half, 7 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. They go up on Syracuse at the half, 36 to 25. It's the largest halftime deficit that Syracuse had to face this year. And don't get me wrong, Syracuse would come back to try to make a run. Led by, Michael Carter-Williams, Brandon Trish. They were able to cut the lead down to 8 with about 4 minutes to go. And then Michigan missing lots of free throws. Syracuse was able to make it 57-56 with under a minute to go. Michael Carter-Williams fouled out of this game with only 2 points, 1 of 6 shooting with a minute 14 left. And you thought, okay, he's a star point guard. Well, if he fouls out of this game, there's no chance that they're going to win. James Sutherland, who shot poorly from the field, hit his first three to cut that lead to 1, 57-56. After Mitch McGary missed 3 free throws in a row, even with the lane violation. So Syracuse had the ball after Michigan made both free throws to cut it down to 59-56. Brandon Trish, another senior, also fouled out of the game with 19 seconds. So Syracuse goes down, and Cooney, who was a backup point guard / shooting guard, dribbled the ball down, and it took him a little while to try to get to the rim, and he attacked the rim, and that's not his move, and it was a poor shot. Michigan got it. Jordan Morgan answered with a slam dunk to give Michigan the 5-point victory and a date with Louisville in the national championship game. And like I said in the game, Syracuse, the bottom line was their 2-3 zone stifled Michigan at points, but they were able to attack with McGary and then hitting their deep perimeter shots. Great production off the bench from Karis LeVart, 2 big threes, as well as Spike Albrecht, a couple big threes, and Jordan Morgan, who took a big charge late in the game. That was the play that Brandon Trish fouled out on, and then he got the winning dunk at the end to put him up by 5. That sealed the game. Mitch McGary, though, was the story. A double-double, 10 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. The only one who contributed for Syracuse was C.J. Fair. He had 22 of Syracuse's 56 points, 6 rebounds. And it's a pretty amazing feat when your star player, Trey Burke, shows up, who doesn't show up, and they still were able to find a way to win. Only 1 of 7 with 7 points. If he can win when he plays poorly, that's saying something. And John Beilein finally getting to a championship game after having some success with West Virginia, limited success with Michigan, finally got his first win against Jim Boeheim, 1-9 now against him. And it's going to be a heck of a game tomorrow night with Michigan and Louisville. And if you look at this game, you have the top 2 teams. The best team in offensive efficiency in Michigan, and then the best team in defensive efficiency in Louisville. I want to say that guard play is the dominating factor, because if you look at Michigan's guards, Tim Hardaway Jr., Trey Burke, Louisville, Russ Smith, Peyton Siva, what a matchup. But I think the key will be the battle inside. Mitch McGary, really, the best center he's gone up against, I think, this year was Jeff Withey, and he handled him pretty well. Gorgui Dieng, I think, is another matchup altogether, because Dieng is able to kind of hit the 15-foot shot from the free throw line. Jeff Withey is not good at that, so Dieng might be able to spread the floor a little bit, and Dieng's a big shot blocker. I think McGary will have a bit of an advantage with his size. He has more muscle on him than Dieng, but with Dieng's length, it could bother McGary. So I think that matchup could determine a lot in this game. I think it's definitely going to be an up-tempo game. Both teams like to go fast. Question is, will Louisville be able to keep the perimeter shooting of Michigan down? Because that was Michigan's forte in the beginning of the year, that they were a jump shooting team, 3-point shooting team. The 3-point shot determines how this team would compete. So, in the end, it's going to come down individual play. Will Russ Smith be able to carry Louisville? Will Trey Burke be able to carry Michigan? I think it's going to be one heck of a game, but my prediction is that Louisville, the number 1 overall seed, is going to get it done. As far as a score prediction, I'll say that Louisville wins the game 77-72. I think it'll be close throughout, and it's definitely going to be one of the best championship games that I think I will see in a long time. And it's very sad to see that the college basketball season will come to an end tomorrow, but with that, definitely one of the better seasons in a long time with all the upsets and everything. So we'll definitely get more definitely do a recap of this game on next week's show. But I think Louisville will be cutting down the nets and celebrating a championship. Rick Pitino, if they were to win, only the first coach in history to win 2 championships with 2 different schools. To win a championship with 2 different schools. Kentucky back in '96, and if Louisville can get it done this year. And now to get into some hockey talk. The Penguins' winning streak, that was the big focus on last week's show. Still riding high, 15-game winning streak, but unfortunately for the Penguins, it would end on Tuesday night as they lose to the Sabres 4-1. In this game, they really didn't show a lot of fire in them. Of course, with Crosby being out, it was just a bad game in general. They commit penalties, 5 penalties in this game, and that was the thing. I mean, they were trying to make a rally, but they just committing penalty after penalty. And even though they killed all 5, it's hard to do when you commit those penalties. And coming in to this game on Tuesday, the questions were, how long is Crosby going to be out? What are the lines going to look like? And who's going to be stepping up? Who's going to have to step up their game for this team to still be successful? And turned out that Crosby had a broken jaw. He's going to be out indefinitely. There's a good chance he's going to miss the rest of the regular season and that he should be ready for the playoffs. And he had some titanium put in his jaw, and will most likely, I'm assuming when he comes back, wear a special mask, because he's not going to want to have this incident happen again. He'll still be probably a little nervous about that. But the question now is, how are the lines going to look? And going into Tuesday's game, the way I thought I saw it shaping up was that Sutter would be moved up to line 1, and then the third line would be Morrow, Cook, and Kennedy. But Bosma decides to just bump Kennedy up on line 1 because that's where Kennedy finished the game last Saturday. Decided to put him on line 1 to center it between Kunitz and Dupuis. And the third line would have been Morrow, Cook, and either Jeffrey or the third line would have been Morrow, Cook, and Jeffrey. Or excuse me, Morrow, Cook, and Sutter. So I wasn't real happy about it because I thought Kennedy, he used to be a center, but I just didn't think they would get the same production out of that line. And if you go by Tuesday's game, they didn't. The other question was, who's going to step up in the absence of Crosby? Automatically, you look to the other superstar on the team, end up getting Malkin, because when Crosby was injured in 07 and 08, Malkin, 47 goals, 59 assists that year, and then last year, 50 goals, 59 assists, the MVP. But up to this point, you have not seen Malkin step up whatsoever. Only 6 goals in 26 games, unacceptable for his pedigree, and it's just been, he hasn't had the season that he's hoped to have. And some of the streaks that the Penguins also lost in this Buffalo game, as we said, the winning streak, 15, tied now for the second longest in NHL history with the 81-82 Islanders. The 12-game winning streak, which is the longest ever for them, finally ended. The shutout streak of 218 minutes, 48 seconds, which was a team record, ended. And Tomas Vokun's winning streak of shutout streak of 173 minutes and 6 seconds also ended. His longest and the franchise's longest. So then the Penguins followed that up with a back-to-back game against the Rangers. Marc-Andre Fleury in net. He finished the game against Buffalo, stopping all 16 shots. And in this game against New York, not a good game whatsoever. This game came on the heels of trading deadline, right after the deadline ended at 3 p.m., and the Rangers, they made a whole bunch of moves, getting Ryan Clough from the Sharks, Derek Brassard, and Jonathan Moore, and all 3 of them chipped in goals, and the Penguins really had no pulse in this game. They end up losing 6-1. Once again, committing too many penalties. The Rangers go 3 for 4 on the power play. They leave Fleury in because a lot of the shots, they weren't his fault. The team was shorthanded. The players just didn't play at all. The only guy to score for the Penguins to add a goal was Pascal Dupuis in the middle of the second period. But, 13 takeaways for the Rangers, 25 total penalty minutes for the Penguins. Just not a good game at all. And no Mark Eaton in this game either. He did not play because of asthma issues. So, yeah, it was just a bad game all around for the Penguins. And you're thinking, oh no, they have now lost 2 games in a row now without Sidney Crosby. Oh no, what are they going to do? But you got to remember, they are 82, 45, and 16 without Crosby in the lineup. So they are able to find a way to win without him there. So before the game, they had a rematch with the Rangers back at Consol Energy Center on Friday. Before this game, actually before the Wednesday game as well, during the trading deadline, you knew Ray Shero was going to try and do another move. He always does before the deadline. And he goes out and trades for Jussi Jokinen from the Carolina Hurricanes for a conditional draft choice. The Hurricanes agreed to pick up a portion of his salary and all of the salary for 2013-2014. The Pens will not have to pay anything unless they reach the Stanley Cup Finals, or if Jokin appears in at least 25% of the playoff games. The Hurricanes would get a 7th round pick, and they would get a 6th if the Penguins win the Stanley Cup. And what they're getting in Jussi Jokinen, this year, his production has not been at the level where it can be. Only 6 goals and 11 assists in 33 games, but career-wise, 121 goals, 346 assists in 121 goals, 346 points in 569 career games. His best year was in 2010, where he had 30 goals and 31 assists. Plan for him was now to bump him up to line 1 to center it between Kunitz and Dupuis, and then move Kennedy back down to the 4th line. And in Friday's game, boy, did Jussi Jokinen step up and play one hell of a game. This game virtually looked like a playoff game. It was scoreless the first 2 periods. Wasn't until 30 seconds into the 3rd period where Jussi Jokinen got on the board, a nice pass from Chris Kunitz from behind the net. His first goal was a Penguin, and then the Rangers end up getting a goal back, though, late in the 3rd period. A clean face-off win. Rick Nash shot it. Fleury was screened by a couple players, so that made it 1-1. Game went into overtime. Nothing, not really too many chances for each team in there, so it goes to a shootout. And what do you expect? With no Neal, no Crosby, no Letang, well, they put Jussi Jokinen in. He gets a goal. From then on out, no one else scores, so he had the winning shootout goal, and the Penguins' only regulation goal was they win 2-1. This was just your typical playoff game. Both teams really played stellar game. It's just the Penguins had the extra gear with Jokinen being inserted into that lineup, and Mark Eaton was back. And I know the defense has been just superb over the winning streak, and really since Eaton got there. Because going into the Tuesday's game this week, the Penguins were at one point 23rd defensively. And now they moved up to 4th. So that's just amazing to what they have accomplished with their defense during this time. And I know people are going to say, one player doesn't make a difference, but I think Eaton is a very, very important part to this team. When he is in there, they are only allowing 1.78 goals against. When they are without Eaton, 2.87. That is over a 1 goal difference. And the penalty kill without him, 77%. With him, 87.5%. Mark Eaton, and they are 14-1 when he is played. I know he doesn't give you any offense. He has no points, but he is a +5, and he is a defensive specialist. He will get down there. He will block shots. He will really be a pest to a lot of the top forwards on the opposing team. And he is a big reason why the team defense is having so much success. So Mark Eaton right now is the unsung hero by far for this Penguin unit, for the defensive unit. And there was also a play in the New York Rangers game that really caught my eye. James Neal caught an elbow from Michael Del Zotto. And a lot of people were saying, okay, he's going to get a call. He might get suspended or fined. But he did not receive any punishment whatsoever. James Neal looked very wobbly after receiving the elbow to the face, or to the head area, and now he will probably be out a few games. Because earlier today, the Penguins decided to call up Bo Bennett, so I'm assuming he will be placed into the starting lineup with Neal for the first few games. And the question is, will he be on line 2 with Malkin or Iginla, or will they just insert him again, to line 3 or 4 and just bump someone up to the second line? So that will be interesting to see. I think Bennett, I hated to see him leave the lineup, but I know that was going to happen when they got Iginla. And he has 9 points with his time here with the Pens, but I just think he is a very good young player, doesn't shy away from the big stage. And if you throw him into a pressure-filled situation, I think he's going to come out of it even better. So I hope the BB gun, that's the nickname I have coined for him, hopefully he comes through and, maybe he, with the starting opportunity now that he's going to get with Neal being out, maybe he can find a way to get some points on the board, get some assists, maybe get some goals, and really make it hard for Bilesma not to have him play toward the end of the season and possibly once playoffs come around. And with that winning streak coming to an end, it's time for another winning streak to start. Penguins now have 58 points. They have a 3-point edge over the Canadiens, who have one less game played. So it's definitely going to be between them for the top 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference. And believe it or not, if the Pens win at least 2 more games, the next 2 games, they're probably going to win the division, because the next closest team is the New York Rangers, and they are 16 points behind the Penguins. And not sure yet right now, but possibly tonight, if the Devils lose to the Buffalo Sabres, the Penguins will clinch a playoff spot. They will be the first Eastern Conference team to clinch a playoff spot, so no surprise there. But definitely going to look forward to seeing how this team competes this week coming up. Battle on the road, 3 games on the road in the Southeast Division with the Hurricanes, the Lightning, and the Panthers. So, see how this team plays. Not so good on the road last week against the Rangers without Sidney Crosby. Now they'll probably have to do without James Neal as well. So, definitely will be a fun week for this Penguin team, especially with Jokinen now in the mix. And now we're going to get into a little football talk. The Steelers, not much news really with them. They revealed their preseason schedule for this year. They will be playing against the New York Giants in the first game. It's the first time since '92 that the Steelers will be hosting the Giants at Heinz Field. The only date set is in the second week. Will be a Monday night game on August 19th when the Steelers go to Washington, play at FedEx Field. And then the third game, home against Kansas City. The fourth game at Carolina. They always end the preseason with the Panthers. They re-signed one player, Stevenson Sylvester, just to give them some more depth at the middle linebacker position. I mean, he's never really been a stellar linebacker. He's been a good special teamer. But I think it's just a good signing in case, the injuries happen. And, of course, we know that they had the injury bug last year. The big question is, what are they going to do with Ahmad Bradshaw? He visited, did not sign, no contract. I guess they're still waiting for him in his injury. He's recovering from foot surgery. He's only 27. Has had over 1,000 yards multiple times with the Giants. I think he is a good running back. I think he would be a good fit here for the Steelers. Many people, though, they're a little wary about signing him just because of the injury factor. And and the fact that he won't be able to maybe to stay healthy for a full year, because that's what they had with Mendenhall, and they don't have a go-to back right now. So that would be my reason for signing him, because I don't know if you're comfortable with having Dwyer or Redmond as your starter again for 16 games. Now, there are a few other teams interested in Bradshaw. The Packers are among one of them, and now the Broncos have thrown themselves into the equation of trying to attain Bradshaw, because they don't really have a starting running back, so to speak. They have no Sean Moreno, but I mean, he's still young and he is battling injury issues. And then they have Willis McGahee, who was pretty much on the end of his career. So it's going to be interesting to see which team goes after Bradshaw, because there were some reports that saying, oh, Bradshaw wanted the big contract, and obviously the Steelers didn't have enough money to give him. There are other reports that the Steelers are just going to wait until another month or so to sign him, because they were only going to give him maybe $2 to $3 million. So I don't know right now. I still think he'd be a good fit, and I think he would definitely help this team if they were able to sign Bradshaw. But now we're going to get into what was a bad, very bad week for the University of Pittsburgh. Both sports teams, actually all three, both the women's and men's basketball team and the football team suffered major hits. The women's basketball team being that they fired Coach Agnes Baronato. Did not have great success the past 2 years. I don't even think won a Big East game the past 2 years. And then with men's basketball, shocked. I was completely shocked to hear this, that Steven Adams on Tuesday declared for the NBA draft and ended his Pitt career way too shortly, in my opinion. I do not think he is ready for the NBA. His best game was against Wichita State, there's no doubt. 13 points, 11 rebounds. His highest scoring game came back in December against Bethune-Cookman when he had 16 points. His highest rebounding effort came against Seton Hall in early February with 15 rebounds. His stats for the entire year, 32 games, 23.4 minutes a game, 7.2 points, 6.3 rebounds. 44% from the free throw line, 57% from the field, 2 blocks a game, and 0.6 assists a game. He only had 2 double-doubles in his freshman year. The way I see it, he has a lot of weaknesses that I think could have definitely been shored up if he were to stay at Pitt for his sophomore year. One of those weaknesses being that it seemed like he was not aggressive enough when he got the ball down low. Whenever he caught the ball, he would bring it down low, which would give the defending players a chance to knock it away from him, forcing a turnover. And if he went up against a guy who was close to the same height as him, he would go up soft. There were multiple times when you saw him try to go for a layup and the shot was blocked instead of trying to go down for the dunk. He did run the floor well, but his outside shooting as well, not three-point shooting, but the 10, 15-footers did not look clean at all. He needed a lot of work. The one reason why he decided to declare, money issues. I mean, he one of 18 children. His dad died when he was 13. He said that he wanted to help his family, and going to the NBA, possibly to get $1 million contract, that's going to help your family a lot. And the one thing that a lot of NBA scouts liked in him was his size. And people are projecting him to be a late first-round pick, so that's going to give you a hefty amount of money, and he just thinks it's the best time for him to do this, to help his family out in New Zealand. And some of the reasons, you look at Nerlens Noel, you look at his injury, you look at what happened to Kevin Ware of Louisville. If that were to happen to Adams, I mean, who knows? I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, he comes back for his sophomore year, he improves, maybe he's a top 5 pick. Helps Pitt get to a Final Four finally. But on the other side, an injury could push him back even another year. His family might get in more financial issues. He just thinks it's the best time. Dixon was fully behind him. I'm just still disappointed to see him go, but I understand the reasons why, so I'm not going to knock him for that. But it's just another long line of highly touted players that ended their career here too early. DeJuan Blair, who I thought should have went to the NBA even after his sophomore year, but still, you would have liked to see him hang around for another, possibly 2 years. Chris Taft left early when he was a sophomore, and now you add Adams to the mix, leaving after a freshman. And then, I don't know if you want to consider it more bad news. Trey Ziegler is going to transfer from Pitt, possibly to play with a Division II or Division III school, or have the waiver, or have the certain waiving so that he could play for a Division I team possibly next year. He did not do much for Pitt. I thought he was going to be a huge help, possibly even starting for some games at the shooting guard position because of the success he had at Central Michigan, but just did not amount to much. Only averaged 4.4 points, 2 rebounds a game. He averaged 16 his first 2 years at Central Michigan. And he was suspended for 2 games in November, December for a DUI. So it just wasn't a good year. He wasn't a good fit in Jamie Dixon's system, so he will be looking to play elsewhere. And now you look at this, the team for next year for Pitt. Zana will be back. Hopefully Dixon now uses one of these scholarships to offer to a big guy. And I know it's pretty much going to be the same thing with Adams. You're going to get a freshman in here who probably won't be as highly touted. It's going to be another tough year for them to try to get points down in the post because I don't think Zana is a typical center. But you have Zana starting, you have Patterson starting, James Robinson starting, and then you throw Deron Johnson maybe in there as the shooting guard, possibly Cameron Wright, J.J. Moore. You still got some good quality players, and then with the recruits coming in. So I just think it'll be a tough year for Pitt since they're going to be moving to the ACC. But all in all, I think that they would still be good enough to make the NCAA tournament, and who knows, see where they get there from there. But losing Steven Adams, a big loss to the team, but I'm sure Dixon will find a way to still get this team to perform at a top-notch level. And then the other bad news was for the Pitt football program, where Russell Shell decided to leave Pitt, and he is going to try and transfer to a Pac-12 school. He tried to go to Arizona or Arizona State, but Pitt has decided to block that. He will have a chance to appeal. And you know what? I'm totally for Pitt blocking him. I know they should just let him go where he wants to go, but if he wants to go back to Arizona State and Todd Graham, that's a slap in the face to Pitt. And I'm not for that whatsoever. And the reason why he's going to transfer to school out there is the feeling that he might get away with more stuff because he was disciplined, suspended in his first game as a freshman under Paul Christ. So maybe he didn't like the way Christ was disciplining him. I don't know. There might be something going on with his family. You know, he has twins. He's not married. So maybe that was the reason too. But I'm not going to knock him because he has to do what's best for him and his family, just like Adams did. But just the way his whole career went here, even though it was only 1 year, and if he's doing it because he wants to get away with more things, he doesn't handle being disciplined very well, well, then that's just a poor reason for leaving a team, because you got to grow up and you got to learn how to take discipline. So we'll see. Maybe he'll turn out to be a really good running back at one of the Pac-12 schools. Maybe he'll fizzle out, but not the way many Pitt fans would have hoped to see Shell's career go. Pitt, they were hoping. He was the all-time leading rusher in Whippeal history Pennsylvania history at Hopewell. People thought, he would have been the next Tony Dorsett here at Pitt, but just the way things sometimes go, and just disappointment this past week for the Pitt program. And now to get into the final topic of the show. Baseball started this past Monday. The Pirates looking to squash all those notions that they're still going to be haunted by the subpar finishes, the horrible finishes the past 2 years. Get off to a good start. Try and be over 500 for this year for the first time in 20 years. And boy, have they gotten off to a horrible, treacherous, pathetic start that I did not see coming at all. They are now 1-5, tied for last place with the Milwaukee Brewers in the NL Central. Their offense started off slow last year, was one of the worst offenses in all of baseball the first 2 months. Well, I don't know if it's possible, but their offense looks even worse this year. Started off on opening day where they hosted the Chicago Cubs, A.J. Burnett going up against Jeff Samardzija, and Samardzija has owned the Pirates the past couple of starts, and in this game he did the exact same thing. The Pirates were only able to get a few hits early on. They did not score a run until the bottom of the ninth. Burnett pitched a great game. He only had only a few bad pitches. It was the home run, the 2-run home run by Anthony Rizzo in the first, and then later on in the sixth, where he got into some trouble. But the Pirates ended up losing that game 3-1. The only bright spot in this first week was that the game I was fortunate enough to go to, Wandy Rodriguez pitched a gem, 6 innings pitched, no runs, 1 walk. Pirates go up 3-0 and end up winning the game by a score of 3-0. Starling Marte 1 for 4 in RBI. Andrew McCutchen got an RBI, a double. Clint Barmas adding a double as well. It was one of the coldest games of the year. It was even colder than games in October from last year. Got to about the 25 degrees at one point, but just good pitching from Wandy. Tony Watson came in with the bases loaded in the 7th. Got out of it with a pop-up, and then Grilli came on for his first save as the official closer of the Pirates. And then the Pirates followed that up with an afternoon game with the Cubs. We're down 3-0 virtually all the way up until the 9th. They got 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th, first and third, nobody out. You think, okay, at worst we're going to go to extra innings. But no, Pedro Alvarez strikes out. Neil Walker bounces into a game-ending double play. They got a great pitching performance from James McDonald in this game. 7 innings pitched, only giving up 2 hits, striking out 4. Jared Hughes gave up the big home run in the 9th, the big 2-run homer. And, I mean, that's just been the story so far in this first week. And even on the road against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Great pitching once again, going up against Zach Greinke, Clayton Kershaw, and then Hyun-Jin Ryu from Korea. And the Pirates are only able to muster a total of 2 runs in this entire series. Greinke shut him out 3-0. The Pirates only had 2 hits in the game. Only had 2 hits against Clayton Kershaw, losing 1-0. And then you think with the offense, maybe they're going to get a wake-up call in the first inning in today's game. Okay, it starts off good. Marte leadoff single, Andrew McCutchen a 2-run homer. Yeah, hooray, here we go. Only 2 runs the Pirates would score. Only got 2 hits after that. Total 4 hits. The Dodgers have 11. They put up 4 runs on Jeff Locke, who had a decent pitching performance, but they go on to win. The Dodgers go on to win 6-2, and they sweep the Pirates in LA for the 2nd consecutive year. The Pirates are now 4-19 in Los Angeles in their last 23 games. They have now lost 9 in a row they've now lost 6 in a row to the Dodgers, and just dating back to last year, this team is in complete disarray. I mean, if you look at this, they are coming into today's game last in the majors with a 330 on base plus slugging percentage, 330 OPS, last in the majors with a batting average of 117. They have been caught stealing 3 times. The only team up until McCutchen's 2-run homer to have any home runs, to have no home runs, last with 6 RBIs. And to show how pathetic that is, Chris Davis, the first baseman of the Baltimore Orioles, 4 home runs and 17 RBIs in the first 5 games. That's more than the whole Pirates team combined. They only had 2 players hitting over 200 up to today. McCutchen at 235, Marte 211. Alvarez, 7 strikeouts. Goes 0 for 4 today with 3 more. Russell Martin, catcher brought in to help with the offense, 0 for 14 so far. They are just getting no production whatsoever from Neil Walker, Pedro Alvarez, none from the bench. I know it's only 6 games. I know last year the Pirates started out 2-4. Their offense was super slow. But the thing is, I do not see any signs that this offense is going to pick up anytime soon. They got to go now with the 3-game road trip to Phoenix to take on the Diamondbacks, who are 5-1. They're likely going to lose 2 out of those 3 games unless something changes with this offense. They could get swept again. It's very disheartening to see, because if they have another year where they just are not in it at all, they're out of it by April, because it very likely could happen, then it's just going to be a very depressing summer for a lot of Pittsburgh fans. And if you look at this, the way this is shaping up, the first month of their season is by far the toughest. And I know people are going to say, okay, look at the pitchers that they faced. Zach Greinke, Clayton Kershaw. Okay, I'll give you those pitchers, but Jeff Samardzija, yes, he's owned the Pirates, but he is not a dominant pitcher yet in this league. Travis Wood, definitely not a dominant pitcher. They were able to get runs on Edwin Jackson. The offense is not giving them what it needs to be at this point. They wanted to come out and start off the first month of the year good offensively, something they have not done the past 2 years. If they start off good in the first few months, maybe they won't fall off again in the last few months. And the one thing that is so frustrating is that their starting pitching has just been superb this first week. And that is what people were questioning. They thought the lineup actually looked good, with Jones and Gabby Sanchez having that great spring, Alvarez hopefully improving, McCutchen having another stellar year, and then Walker being healthy. They thought the lineup was going to be the strong point of this team. Well, right now it is definitely the weak point. A.J. Burnett, 2 great performances, only allowing 1 run against the Dodgers, only allowing 3 against the Cubs, and the offense gives him nothing. They give him no runs whatsoever. James McDonald, 7 strong innings pitched, 1 run. The offense gives him nothing. And even Jonathan Sanchez had a decent game. He matched Kershaw for 5 1/3 innings. And even the bullpen comes in and does their job. Justin Wilson has been pitching well. Mark Melancon, Tony Watson. Now, I will say today, the bullpen did not perform so well. Chris LaRue gave up a home run to Justin Sellers, another run to Adrian Gonzalez. I mean, he torched the Pirates pitching today, 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs. But aside from that, I mean, the pitching has just been off the charts. Coming into the Sunday's game, the opponent's batting average against for the Pirates was 172. That was second in the major leagues. But when you combine that with being last in the major leagues in OPS and batting average, that's not really going to help. And I mean, the Pirates, they're striking out batters. Burnett had 9 against the Dodgers last night, and then in opening day he had 10, which was the most by an opening day Pirate pitcher since John Candelaria back in the early 80s. So the offense just has to contribute. And if for some reason it is the same exact case this week, especially starting tomorrow with Wandy going out there, I mean, he has the only win right now for the Pirates. If for some reason if he pitches, say, 7 innings of shutout ball, and the Pirates put up nothing and they end up losing the game 1-0, how do you think these pitchers are going to start feeling? They're going to say, okay, you're getting the ball today. They're not going to feel too happy with the offense not putting up a fight and giving them a chance to win. And then if that happens, they're going to have to call out the players. And then there's going to be a big tension-filled locker room right there with the offensive players and then the pitchers. And that's something you don't want. And this happened last year, back in April and May. And the offense had those 2 monster months in June and July. I don't know if that's going to happen again 2 years in a row. So they just have to find a way to get the bats going. Because right now, Starling Marte and Andrew McCutchen are the only ones that are showing any sort of pop in their bat. And even they're not doing enough. I mean, they're barely doing okay, batting around 200 early on. So I just think the lineup too just has to start producing. Hurdle's been switching up this lineup here. They got to get a consistent lineup going in there. Marte has been the leadoff guy. Walker has been too, although in the first game they had Garrett Jones batting in the 2 spot. They're trying to start off different right fielders, whether it be Jones, and then Sanchez is at first, or if it's Snyder or Tabata. Russell Martin has not been working so far at catcher, so they threw McHenry in there today to give Martin a rest. They need to find, I know it's hard to do when your offense isn't producing, but they need to find a set lineup. Where is Alvarez going to hit? Did not do so well in these first few games at cleanup. They put him in at 5th at one game, and now he was just batting at 6th the past 2 games. I don't know what they're going to do with him. He's had more success in the 5 and 6 hole, 6 slot than the cleanup spot, but they want him to be the cleanup hitter of the future. So the question is, are they going to endure his struggles and just leave him there? I don't know. The bottom line is this offense just has to get it going. I do not know how. It all starts with Andrew McCutchen, I think. Once he gets going, the team will be more comfortable, and they will start to get things going. So that's just going to be the thing to look on from here on out. They got 3 games at Arizona and a big 10-game homestand with Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Atlanta. So, if you're not going to get your offense going, when's it going to happen? Because, like I said, they could be out of the playoff race, so let alone being 500, trying to get to over 500 by the end of this month if their offense continues to struggle the way it has been struggling. But that'll do it, though, for today's show. Got into a lot of different topics. Next week's show, we'll be sure to get into the Pirates coming off 6 games, 3 against the Diamondbacks, 3 against the Reds. The Penguins having their 3-game road trip with the Southeast Division. Get into the national championship game between Louisville and Michigan. Any other news going on with the Steelers? Draft time will be approaching soon, so we'll be sure to get into that in the next coming weeks. But next week should just be a fun-filled show. And also, I'll be talking a little bit about NBA. I haven't really talked about the NBA that much on the Sports Wrap. The playoffs will be set by next week, and I'll just give a little preview of what to expect from the NBA playoffs as well. So hopefully by next week's show, the Pirates are going to have a few more wins. Their offense is going to keep it going. My mistake. You don't want to keep it going with their struggles. You hope that the offense can just find their footing, and back in the starting pitching hopefully is solid, and they can rack up a winning streak this next week. So that'll do it. Signing off, I'm Michael Kravetz, and you just listened to the Sports Wrap.